Assalamu alaikum, friends. How are you? My name is Abdul Khalik Dervish. Listen, communication. A human being is different and superior from the rest of the creatures. The most important of all the reasons is that a human being does communicate and communicate very effectively. Now, out of the humans, once we are considering the humans only, those who have got the good communication, they are really great people. Great in the sense that they are going to lead a very good life. That leading a very good life mean that they are able to interact with other people in a much better manner. So to be able to deal well, to be able to get the best out of the other people, and to be able to deliver much, we need to be very good communicators. Having a good communication skill, it is one of the most important skills indeed. So we should always cherish it. We should always try to develop it. So that is one of the most important skills ever. So do not miss any opportunity to develop this skill. And dear friends, we need to learn it. Like every great skill, we need to learn it. And if at all it is one of the greatest skills, we need to work very hard upon it. We need to work very persistently upon it, really, because it is really very important skill indeed. So we are going to talk about this communication skill of the communication. And like every discussion and talk of ours, we have included a very useful and a very beneficial article on the subject as well. And the caption of this very beautiful and useful article is eight things effective communicators never do in conversation. Eight things effective communicators never do in conversation. Yes, if at all we want to become an effective communicator, we should never ever be doing any of these eight things during the course of a conversation with anyone else. What are those? First of all, the author says the author says interrupting the speaker. We need to listen very carefully, cautiously. Interrupting mean that we are unable to understand them well. If at all we don't understand them well, we will never ever be able to think well what do they mean, and whether they are right, to what extent they are right, to what extent they are not so right. We shall never be able to respond properly if at all we don't listen to them well. So it is really important, very important, that we should listen to them well, and we should not be interrupting. Rather, we need to pay quite a good amount of attention to whatever they have been talking. Number one. Number two, using judgmental language. They don't use the judgmental language at all. Why? Because being judgmental mean you always do this mean that is not so right. Mean you need to differentiate. Everything what they are doing is not bad. Everything, excuse me, what they are doing is not good. So it is actually different. Everything should be seen independently. And then once we have seen it, once we have concluded it, then we should try to connect it with the nature of that particular person. So don't be judgmental at all. Using judgmental language, you always do this, you always do that, you are this like person, you are that like person. So mean you are not paying attention to what the other person have said or done. Be very careful and cautious. Be precise here. What actually mean? Be precise, be to the point. And number three, neglecting non-verbal cues. Do not neglect the non-verbal cues at all. The eyebrows, the body language, the smile, the stressful look, or the way person is sitting or standing, moving the hands and the legs. So we need to notice, and we need to understand. We need to decode it. It needs to be decoded. So this is not the topic of our today's discussion. What are the non-verbal cues? Because it need a separate amount of discussion. Here simply we need to say neglecting non-verbal cues. Number four, monopolizing conversation. Do not try to monopolize conversation at all. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the 2 ears and the one tongue. What it does is it actually mean, it means that we need to speak less and listen more. We don't need to monopolize the conversation at all. Rather, we need to listen more and we need to speak less. It is important. Number five, failing to empathize. If at all we don't empathize, they will not open us with us at all. We need to empathize. We need to put ourselves into the shoes of those particular people. Only then we will be able to understand them. And once we do understand them well, then only we will be able to respond well. Then only we will be able to handle and tackle them well. Then only we will be able to manage them well, because they have opened up with us. Why? Because we have empathized. And also we will be able to understand their emotions, their circumstances, their mental position once we do empathize. So it is extremely important to empathize. Number six, jumping to conclusions. Do not jump to conclusions at all. Don't give a knee jerk reaction. Do not give a knee jerk reaction at all. Do not conclude. So, do not jump to the conclusion. Think well, consider well. Very, very important indeed. And without a proper homework, never ever conclude. Now, the, the seventh is avoiding difficult topics. Avoiding difficult topics. We don't need to avoid the difficult topics at all. We don't need to avoid the difficult topics at all. We need to take them head on. We need to take them head on. And if at all a topic is a difficult one, it does not mean that we need to avoid it. We need to work well upon it. Because if at all we don't do that, we run away from that. Who else will do that? It's, if it is my work, I have to do it. I have to do it. Running away from it, it is not a solution to it. Rather, if at all it is a difficult one, I need to prepare well. I need to prepare well. Once I'm well prepared, then I can talk. Avoiding difficult topics. The last and the eighth is disregarding feedback. If at all somebody gives us a feedback, we don't need to disregard it at all. If at all somebody has given us a feedback, we don't need to disregard it at all. Rather, we need to take it carefully. Everything else which we have been told about us, about our performance, about our personality, might not be necessarily right at all. But there are certain things which are really good and important for us as a feedback, as an advice for the future. So this only can be separated once we pay quite a good amount of attention. So that was a very beautiful article indeed, and the caption of this beautiful article was eight things effective communicators never do in conversation. If at all I or you want to be a good communicator, we need to avoid all of these eight things. Okay, if you want to be a good communicator, that very useful article has been written by Rick Brune is a very well-known researcher and author, has written many useful article books and has delivered lectures in the developed countries. So I am Abdul Khalik Darwish.